千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Daodejing by Lao Zi. If you were to study Buddhism, you may come across this concept called the Noble Eightfold Path. So let me talk about that. First of all, in Chinese, you'll see the 3 characters right below that. So of course, not knowing Chinese, someone who is only a native English speaker may say, oh, okay, well, so then this character here must be noble, and then this character here must be 8, and then Dao, the last character, hey, I recognize that. That looks like this character over here. That means the way, so that's the path. So we have like a one-to-one correspondence, right? Well, that's actually incorrect. Noble Eightfold Path is a translation into English that is, it's a formulation that's stuck. So we're stuck with it, but it's not a real translation of the original. It's basically translators dressing it up to make something sound bigger than it was in the original. This is done all the time. This results in misconceptions, distortions. This is what I basically work against. So let me explain what the 3 characters are that you see in Chinese down there, right below the English. The first character means 8. So that's actually the eightfold here. It's just the number 8. And then the second character there means straight or right or proper. If you were to actually translate this, it would be something like the 8 right paths, plural, because this thing comes in 8. So what are the 8 right paths? Let me explain. The first right path in Buddhism is the right view. That means proper understanding of life. It means understanding that our actions have consequences. It means understanding that death is not the end of life. And therefore, the actions that have consequences, those consequences are carried beyond death, beyond physical death. And this, of course, leads naturally into concepts like reincarnation. And this is also about the understanding that the Buddha followed and taught a successful path to enlightenment. And this you can recognize as being very similar to the idea of the well-trodden path that we talked about just a few slides ago. The paved road. The Buddha has mapped out this particular path to follow. The ancient sages of the Tao would say that, yes, all the people who have traveled the path, the journey of life, have mapped out a successful path. So then later in Buddhist history, karma, rebirth would all become explicitly entangled, or I would say included into the whole idea of the right view, the right perspective, the right understanding. And it also, there would also be Buddhist teachers who talk about the connection between the Eightfold Path and the 4 Noble Truths. And by the way, when you talk about the 4 Noble Truths, there you can once again figure out pretty much easily on your own that the original doesn't say noble truths. It just say, the 4 truths, the 4 key truths, stuff like that. There's no attempt in the original, in the Buddha's original teaching to dress it up. To the ancient sages like the Buddha and Lao Tzu, truth is truth. All truths are equally precious. Okay, and then moving on, there's also what we call right resolve. That's the second noble path, noble, second of the eightfold path. That is a noble path. Now remember, noble is just a sort of a window dressing. There's no distinction between, noble and base in this particular paradigm. But let's just accept it and understand it as it is. So the right resolve, what is that? It's a resolution to follow the path that's been marked by the Buddha. Now, for people who become Buddhist monks, it's renunciation. It's about giving up one's home, to live in a temple, adopting a life of a religious person, a monk, that is begging for alms, basically living a life of austerity. So this concept is all about peaceful renunciation into an environment of non-temptation, no ill will, so that it is all about loving kindness. It's away from cruelty, so that it goes to compassion. And this is very helpful for the monks to contemplate concepts like transience, impermanence, suffering, non-self, etc. For the typical person following Buddhism rather than monks, it's about the resolve to follow the teachings. And in modern times, it's actually the rare exception now for the monks to follow all 8 of the Eightfold Path. They actually can sometimes be seen indulging in overconsumption. It's the exception that actually follow the path as laid out in the original Buddhist teachings. So let's continue on. The third of the Noble Eightfold Path is right speech. No lying, no rude speech, no passing on gossip, telling one person what somebody else says about him. Maybe that's, a rumor or gossip that would cause discord, conflict, contention. It may cause harm to relationship. This, of course, corresponds with the Tao we previously, in chapter 52, talked about, the Tao of communication, and there are specific instructions in that as well. Things that you should avoid talking about: violent speech, flaunting, and also the practice of doing more listening than talking, because that's when we learn. So right speech. Then we have right action. So in the Buddhist context, that means the avoidance of killing, injuring, harming, taking what is not given, all kinds of material desires, physical desires. These are all to be avoided to a greater extent by the monks, lesser extent by the lay people who follow Buddhism. And this, of course, leads to the non-killing aspect of it, leads to the Buddhist practice of vegetarianism. For people who are not monks, many Buddhists follow a practice of consuming only vegetarian food a couple of times per year during the full moon, new moon, etc. Different people have different practice. Then let's talk about the next one. Right livelihood. This is talking about work or career. This means one should not engage in work that is harmful, that is against Buddhist teachings. Anything that involves dishonesty, stealing, harming, So a Buddhist cannot be, as an example, a butcher to contribute to the harming of life, the killing of life. For the monks, it's basically talking about that life of austerity I mentioned, possessing only what is essential, absolutely necessary to sustain life, to beg for one's daily sustenance, truly a life of austerity. Then, number 6, the sixth of the Eightfold Path is right effort. This is specifically talking about the right effort to improve oneself, to guard against the sense doors. This is exactly equivalent to what we were talking about, watching the portal, which is the communication channel that referenced back to communication over consumption. And then the eyes and ears, these are the sense doors that lead to temptation. So it's basically restraining the sense faculties so that you can generate wholesomeness in your life to avoid that which is unwholesome in Buddhist teachings. Number 7, right mindfulness. This is mindfulness applied broadly. Being mindful of the teachings that are beneficial to the Buddhist path. It's also about being mindful of present moment awareness. What is going on now? That is, never be absent-minded, go on about your business sort of like sleepwalking, being consciously aware of what you are doing. So this encourages the awareness that life has an illusory basis. Everything is transient. Everything is impermanent. Helps you see through the world. Helps you gain the enlightened state. Lastly, the last of the 8 paths is right concentration. And this is basically talking about the practice of meditation. And this meditation is basically something that can be done in a variety of different ways. Not just the sitting kind of meditation. It is also, there's more. There's meditation that is moving, meditation in motion. We'll talk more about that. There's meditative practice that has a whole world of variety. Now, overall, what you're looking at here, the Eightfold Path, this is the formulation in Buddhism of what the right path is. And, I thought that you might find it interesting to see the correspondence that many of these concepts have a very easy way, a one-to-one mapping to the Taoist teachings that we've been talking about. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us all travel safely so we can meet again. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.